Well, I think it's gonna try to go this way.
Gotta bang on the table, Hans. You want me to bang on the table for you, Hans?
Right next to the point.
Bazil, sit down.
Oh, man.
532.
Hey, let's go. This new legislator, I haven't seen him forever.
No, I didn't add it.
Okay, the meeting will please come to order. Minutes to approve is our first business.
Move
I got it, Mark.
Any discussion on the minutes, March 17th? Not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Okay, next, we have Mr. Marshall and company, and however you want to do it. Come right up, or
Just tell me what-
Mike over there.
Podium table.
I don't think, if you can't hear me, holler. I'm a member of your industrial development agency and your water and sewer authority. And we're in the process, we have been in a long time trying to get the addition to the milk plant in place. I really think that plant is one of the biggest things that we've done in this county since Mayor Lattimore brought the steel plant in. They're anticipating putting on about $140 million addition. And we've been monkeying for over a year trying to get a sewer for them. And they can't put the addition on without the addition of a new forced main sewer. I don't know what screwed everything up, but we did the preliminary engineering work on it and went to bid and accepted the low bid on March 7th of last year. And we still have not got the funding completely done for it. And me not knowing any better, I passed a resolution a month ago that we, as soon as we get a statement signed from the milk plant, that we go ahead and start construction. And I did that when we do not have enough funds to complete it. That's what I'm really here for today. We've already spent over $100,000 for engineering. We bought most of the pipe, which is close to $100,000, and we paid for the first phase of the project, which was about $85,000. And we had saved up close to $800,000 in anticipation of, after this milk plant expands, we will have to buy additional land because they will use most of the land that's available in the plot that we have. And I hate to use all of that, but we've committed to using at least $600,000 of that, which leaves us close to $400,000 short. And what I'm here for is to try to answer whatever questions you might have, but to ask you for $400,000. And I've talked with your finance people to see where they thought that might be able to come from. But we've applied for a $1,400,000 grant. And that grant will not be accepted until June, and it will probably not be issued till fall. And they want to start construction in April. In fact, we passed a resolution today giving them authority to do test boring on the land that they're going to build the addition on. So Hans says to keep it short because he wants to go home tonight. So we kind of need $400,000. If we can give it and the grant comes through, we either would not use it or we would give it back to you if we did use it. Because I think if we do get the grant, that will let us have most of the money back that we've already put into it. And that would give us enough with the pilot proceeds from them doing this project to go ahead and look for some additional land. But I've got all kinds of numbers, which I don't want to bore you with, but if you have any questions, I would like to try to answer them from any of you.
Mr. Chairman,
Herb,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just a question. I want to get it through my mind, everybody else, I think. This is not a water and sewer project. It's an IDA project.
It's an
right?
IDA, absolutely.
Okay.
Because of the situation, the IDA is going to turn the sewer line over to the Water and Sewer Authority after it's completed to do the maintenance on it and collect the bills on it and stuff like that. But it's absolutely an IDA project, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted everybody to have that straight.
Okay.
I just had a quick question, maybe it's my ignorance. The money that you say the IDA has and you're short the 400,000 for this economic development project, where does that IDA money come from? Grant funding or another revenue stream?
No, we don't keep any of the grant. The grant funding all goes to specific project. But when we do a pilot program, supposedly we do some negotiating, but we can get 75% of 1%, a little less than 1% of the total cost of the project. And
That's a revenue stream for
that's a
IDA.
revenue stream for us, yeah.
Okay,
That's where we, over all the projects we've done for a long period of time, that's when we end up getting.
And your goal, IDA, is to help promote economic development and move projects like this forward?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions, Jim? You got your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I think I have a little bit of an answer on the pilot program and the proceeds. Is that also include tax revenue from this facility, or is that something else?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
So in the, like, pilot programs are sometimes also fixed tax programs and so forth. Do we know, I don't know much about the contract with this expansion and so forth.
Most of our pilot programs change according to who's applying for them and what the benefit to the community is by the project. Some of it is that they do not have to pay sales tax on the material that goes into the building of the facility. The other, they get not reduction, but a delay in their having to pay taxes. And, if you have a $100+ million assessment, a delay in the taxes is a huge benefit to a company. Does that answer it all?
Sort of.
These are the benefits that you give or
They're the
potentially offer
benefits
to
that
get
come
business
through
to
a
come.
pilot program that's asked for, yes.
I guess is it okay if I have a follow-up question?
Keep going.
Thank you. So with that, is there a time set on that program? Is it 10 years, 20 years? 30
It
years?
varies to the program. Most of them ask for a 20-year and it's phased in over a 20-year program, the tax relief. The sales tax thing is an immediate thing. They, get, from not paying the sales tax on the construction cost of the project.
Understood. Thank you.
Hans, got a question over here. Then Andy.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, I just need a little clarification. I think I'm confused. It happens a lot. So I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're discussing two things. The revenue source for the Industrial Development Agency, which is done through pilot programs,
Yes.
but there is no pilot associated with this project.
Yes, there is.
There is a, okay.
We have not gotten to that stage because they won't do the addition. They won't spend $140 million if they're not going to have a sewer line that will let them operate the new facility. We kind of got to get the whole package put together before we get to the point of negotiating the pilot program for them.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
Yeah. How are you doing, Herb?
Good, Andy.
I don't know if this is more for you or for these two ladies, but when you discussed with the finance, I mean, is this something that can be ARPA? Is this something that?
That's the main reason I guess I'm here. I understood Danielle, who worked for us until she quit a couple of weeks ago, told us that we were getting the funding from you people to pay for this project, because you were giving the agricultural community $2.5 million and they was giving us $1.5 million. And I thought I should come, because if you ask for ARPA grants for the same project from two different sources, like our grant application for the $1,400,000, and what you give, it would wipe out one of them. So I called Hans up to see if he wanted me to come to the meeting to try to explain that we'd already applied for an ARPA grant, and if we got another one, that it would negate one of those grants. And he told me, he says, Herb, you come to any meetings you want to, but there ain't no sense of you coming because it's not even on the agenda. But he asked me to come tonight to try to explain why we needed the money. But if you talk to your finance people about the possible funding, I know what they told me, but Mary Beth or somebody has an
So
idea.
Andy, I think if it's okay,
Go ahead.
there is an economic development reserve that does have 370,000 in it. That could be a place that you could look at for some funding, at least to start with. And obviously, I'm gonna talk about where we are with fund balance as well.
But I get ahead of myself because that's how I function. But I had talked with them about the possibility of where the money could come from. And this account has 370,000 in it. And that would mean you'd only from fund balance or something have to come up with 30 to come up with the.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we had a little meeting yesterday morning, Mary Beth and Lynn were in there with her. This is exactly what this 370,000 is for. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So and the other 30 would not be ARPA either because you already applied for an ARPA grant. So it would be out of the general fund or wherever we may take it if we decide to give you the 30. Okay.
So, Mr. Marshall, thanks for coming. I understood you aren't able to go into an agreement with them, with this company or group, until this line, this sewer line. But.
Go ahead. I
That's
jump
okay.
in.
That's okay. I do the same. Do we have a letter of commitment from them that if we do put it in, that they're committing to doing the
We had a
addition?
meeting with them for over an hour just before I came here, and they signed papers that said that they are committed to the program and that they will assume a debt service on the line if this grant doesn't come through and I have to use your 400,000, that's still going to leave our organization short about another $600,000. So we would end up trying to put some type of a debt service, which they're already paying $65,000 a month for water and sewer. They're paying a huge water and sewer bill. And I hate to add on to their cost the debt service, but they have signed an agreement this afternoon to agree to assume the debt service on that if we do not get a grant. I forgot to mention at the beginning, when we first started this program a year and a half ago, we applied for a small grant, which was $285,000. And I was on a conference call Monday of this week saying that we had been awarded that grant a year ago and they were canceling the grant because it had taken us a year to start the project. And I told them I had just initiated a motion to start the project as soon as we had these signatures. And they said, with that agreement, we will extend the period of time for you to complete the project so you can get that. So with your 400 and at 285, we have $685,000 that we would still be short 600,000, but I don't mind us putting part of it in, and I don't mind the milk plant having a certain level of debt service on it. My real concern is a business concern, and that is that I've agreed to start the contractor doing the work without the money to actually pay for it. That's not your problem, that's my problem, but we have to do that to keep the $285,000 grant that we have, as well as to get them to go ahead and do this improvement project.
Eileen?
I just wanted to help answer that question. So you may be asking, why does CMI or the company want to take over that sewer force main line and cover the debt service? Because they want to be the only user. So that's another thing that they're very interested in just having that line for themselves.
Okay.
So that's something that they're,
But they're,
That drives their-
they're committed if we do this line for the IDA or county to doing the expansion. I just don't want to put us in a position where we're doing this line and we put 1.4
that
million
would-
into it.
Embarrass all of us if we,
Yeah, and then
if we do this.
walk.
right.
They haven't signed a piece of paper that says, you know, if you do A, we'll do B, guaranteed.
When they
We
came
don't have a
to us,
leg to stand on.
when they came to us a year and a half ago, they had a partner who was going to be involved in their funding stream. That partner got discouraged over the period of time and doing business in New York, and they left. So they've been several months securing the financing to do it, and they have secured the financing. So there's nothing sure except that someday all of us are going to die.
And pay
But
taxes.
I really am as positive as I can be of anything that they're ready to do the project.
Would the next step be a formal proposal that we would be looking for this body to investigate this? And I don't know if it comes from attorney to attorney but we don't really have anything in writing, right? So that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want to make any moves until we have it in writing.
Are you referring to a resolution supporting the
Some-
use of these funds from this account to use for this
Exactly.
purpose?
We need to discuss where those funds would come from. Specifically, if we want to use it.
Can we-
Development fund.
Can we,
We could start it
as
tonight.
this body, make a verbal resolution that could be then
think we
made
could
into a
ask
written
Fred.
resolution for the pledge meeting?
We'll just, excuse me, we'll just need to get some more details about potential loan payments and improvements and things like that. I could touch base with Mr. Marshall.
Okay. So we could get it by the next week's meeting?
By next Tuesday.
Do our best.
There you go.
Excuse me,
Do
By
it.
Tuesday.
on Tuesday, you'd like me to come to the meeting, I'll
No.
work with your attorney before then. But it-
Yeah.
No, help do the resolution on Tuesday? Is that what you're saying? As
Yeah.
long as
Yeah,
the
that's what
Fred
I'm
gives?
thinking, right?
I push everybody, but that's I really would, I'd like to know I have the money to pay the contractor. If not, I gotta go to somebody to.
Andy, are you saying support it tonight, that it moves forward with a resolution?
Yes, if we could, if this body could verbally support it tonight, and then Fred, Chris, whoever gets with you in the next few days to get the verbiage put on
Yep.
in writing, then we could pass it next Tuesday, and obviously you guys would be involved as to where the money's coming from.
As far as I'm concerned, it would be wonderful if we could get that far tonight.
Then
I'd make that
Ways and
motion.
Means, will it be a Ways and Means resolution? Okay,
Have to be, wouldn't it?
because there's money associated with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Marshall, thanks for coming. My name is Mark Strong. I guess my question tonight is, you have not settled on a tax relief for this project as of yet?
They have, no. It's gonna, I stutter here a little bit. They're reluctant to commit to the project if there's not gonna be a sewer line. So some way we have to get a sewer line. Once we get the sewer line, then they will apply for a pilot, and then we will get into a negotiation thing with them. They're going to try to get the 0.75% reduced a little bit, and we're going to try to keep as much as we can, because that will give us a basis to try to go out and find some additional land. Myself and David Farrell was involved in getting the land that we have now a guy who used to be a legislator when I was on the board, W.W. Patterson owned that farm. And he sold it to us with almost nothing down and kept the mortgage on it until we had enough money to pay. But we're not going to get a deal like that again. So we're going to have funds to actually look for a place. But to answer your question, we've not started the negotiations on the pilot program yet.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? We haven't heard from the Water and Sewer Authority. Anything to add there or? No? Okay. No further questions. Thank you, Herb.
Okay, did you vote already?
I'd be willing to, you want to do it, Andy, or you?
You want to just do it now?
I'd like to put a motion on the floor that,
Move
Yeah.
forward.
Put a motion, call it WM 6, since we don't have a 6. That work?
That's fine.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
make a motion that we support the continuation of the sewer line with the pending financing coming through the reserve at 370,000, a determination on whether 30,000 is going to come from to make up the 400, and that we get some information into the resolution on the agreement. I want some kind of commitment from that they're going to go forward with the project if we're going to go forward. That should be able to get that going forward with the sewer line.
Second. Okay. I take it, resolution isn't gonna be as long as these talks.
Probably longer.
There's a lot of stuff in there, so.
Let's do it.
Okay. Second, any further discussion on,
I have a question,
Lydia.
so go ahead, Lydia.
and this is an accounting question, so Mary Beth probably. One of the things that came up was the economic fund balance, right? If we zero that out, what are the legal ramifications?
It's just a reserve account, so, but it's not a reserve in the A fund, so we could just by resolution choose to take that money out of that fund. I'll put it into the budget for us to spend, and there's really no ramification from that.
On it all.
If you decide, if Herb just doesn't end up having to spend it or whatever, we could bring that money back into the reserve if that happens.
Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I really want to thank you very, very much for listening to me and to extending me that much of a benefit to try to get this done. He's already made arrangements for me to meet him tomorrow to try to work on it. David, thank you
You're
all
welcome,
so
Herb.
very much.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you.
It says government doesn't move quick. Thank you.
Rare occasion.
Jennifer,
On a rare occasion, you're right.
Jennifer's up, so.
You all have my report in front of you. Open up to any questions that you might have. I really don't have anything else to add to it at this time.
Any questions, anybody?
I got just one quick one, because I've been asked this question. Is it once a year that the maps get updated as far as like when things are sold and bought and whatnot?
No, actually, our mappers, whenever there's a deed transfer, they do make sure that the maps are accurate to the descriptions. If there's a split or a merge, they update those
I
on
guess-
the GIS.
I guess the
website.
question is more for tax purposes. We've gotten
Okay.
somebody there,
Yes.
they've sold it, but they still got the tax.
So that depends on whether the sale is before or after taxable status date. Taxable status date is March 1st. So if the change occurs before March 1st, then yes, that will be reflected on that year's assessment roll, which then impacts the following year's tax bills. If it's after March 1st, it'll be another year before the assessment roll.
That's just, I can explain that better now.
Yes.
Any further questions, anybody? If not, thank you, Jennifer. I think Mary Beth is up next, or David Dempsey, excuse me.
Why don't you go ahead and do Mary Beth first?
Yeah.
Can you do Mary Beth first?
Mary Beth,
So I think you do have my report. And I also sent out our year-end performance report. So if you don't have any questions on my regular monthly report, I can kind of go over where we are fund balance wise.
Yes. Any questions? If not, go ahead.
Okay.
Give me
do
1
you
second. I'm
have
just
it?
gonna, yep, just gonna pull up a PowerPoint.
So kind of the first slide in there is available fund balance. It's broken down by A, D, and DM. So you'll see our A fund balance ended at 22 million, almost 900,000. Our D fund balance is at about 1.4 million and DM is 1.1 million. So certainly strong ending numbers for us. If you go to the next slide, I kind of break down what happened in the A fund. So at the end of last year, we were at 18.5 million. We have to add back in what POs we had open at the end of 2020. During 2021, we transferred almost $2.4 million into our reserve accounts. Most of that was 2 million into the building reserve and 250,000 into the building repair. We did transfer money out of reserves, mostly out of our highway reserve. We had budgeted to take 500,000 out of the highway reserve. And then we took another 194,000 out of there for a capital project. And then down below in the 22 budget, we've budgeted to take almost 2.1 million out of fund balance. So I have to take that away because you've already appropriated that. And then you'll see that in the 21 budget, you had appropriated 1.1 million. We actually added almost 6.2. So it's really almost like a $7.3 million add from the 2021 performance back to the fund balance. So that gets us to the 22.9 million.
So we, when we passed the budget, thought we would use $1.1 million in fund balance to help balance our budget. We did not use that. In addition, we gave additional money because of the sales tax revenue back into the budget. And you pulled back out what we spent. And the end result is this almost $23 million fund balance. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
In okay. In my terms?
In your terms.
Okay.
Any questions on that part?
And just to confirm, that was based on, all that was based on the sales tax that came in, which has been pretty high for.
Yeah, I mean, we looked pretty close. Lynn, it actually helped me kind of go back through budget performance. I mean, really, the sales tax outperformed by 6.2. So it's really that. There's obviously fluctuations all over the place in the budget. We have a lot of big departments with big expenses, so there's some ups and downs everywhere.
Sure.
But that 6.2 is really the big driver of that.
Did we budget less conservatively for this year? Remind me. I mean, we usually we are
I think we're
conservative.
Still pretty conservative, maybe a little bit less conservatively, but still pretty conservative. I think when you look at where we are in the first quarter of sales tax, we're still outperforming. So I don't have a crystal ball today, so I can't tell you what sales tax is going to be. You know,
We
I
generally are more conservative and we have done better than.
Yeah, I keep waiting for the hammer to drop on sales tax and people
Yeah,
do
for
not
sure.
have the money to pay
We are in the village.
for these expenses, but for right now, people are spending. So I don't know, I think I solely contribute to that, but I think sales tax has been strong, so far, so good.
Yeah, very strong.
Other questions?
Any questions, anybody? If not, thank you.
I'm sorry, Hans.
I was gonna just let you know, I just looked up because I'm sitting here. So the sales tax came in at like 29 million. We budgeted like 25 for 2022. So if things are even close to the same as last year, we're still gonna be significantly over.
And lastly, what is our cap, the low and high of?
So that's, if you go, Max, if you
Okay.
can go a couple of slides, it's actually
Got some more.
next one. That one. So you'll see the line, Elaine, the top line is, the parallel lines are top and bottom of our cap. And our minimum fund balance, we are actually over the top at the current time. So we really are over our fund balance policy at 12/31/21. Hopefully our auditors don't comment on that.
Which
That can't
we
be
can,
that thing.
does that, I mean, that doesn't count like the Lydia's question about, taking that 370,000. I mean, we can put 500,000 into that economic
You could,
if we wanted to.
if you wanted to.
Because
Yep.
that wouldn't, to lower the fund balance down, to put it into something like that for good use. would-
Sure. And I did look, just because I was trying to anticipate your questions for tonight, so I did look and see what we've done so far in 22 to take money out of fund balance. Obviously, we took $1 million out for the Dreams project, which I do think we're gonna spend, so that's, come out already of the fund balance in 22. And then there were some smaller draws on fund balance so far this year. So, I mean, you have taken a little bit out already this year, but you're really not, you haven't taken out enough to really
Make
bring
an
it down.
impact.
And to Lynn's point, we've talked about this a lot, like we budgeted to take $2 million out of fund balance this year. The likelihood that we'll do that is probably slim.
Right, so if you go back to that, Max, go back to her first screen where it has the number that the fund balance is at. So what is it, maybe about 22?
22,898.
You can really add $2 million to that because it's not gonna happen. She has to subtract that out because we did appropriate it to next year's budget. Not only will we not spend the 2, we'll probably add another 4 on top of that. So you could be at like
Next year.
28, right? And then you do the same thing again, probably, you know what I mean? So it's kind of just like a little accounting thing there that, that number is actually lower probably then.
And the auditor comment would be like, oh, hey, you're exceeding your fund balance policy. What
Because
are
our
you gonna do
policy
about it?
says, our policy tells us how much we can have in our appropriated fund balance. So in theory, we're in violation of our policy.
And the answer is change the policy or find a way to spend down the
Well,
fund balance?
I mean, the answer that I would give them is we've been acting conservatively because we knew COVID was having economic impact. If we see this going forward, we would move it into a reserve. And we do have some large projects on the table, i.e. a building, et cetera, that we could be spending money on. So that would be my answer to that question.
Jim? I just said, so the other thing, I guess I was thinking of these fund balances, I don't know how the policy was established, so I guess I'm gonna ask to get a copy of that so I can read through it. But also, if there was something catastrophic happen, we have so many months worth of operations dollars and stuff in there.
Sure.
We're running a $150 million a year business with the 22 million that could go in a snap if there was a.
And that's why it's nice to have the reserves as well.
Yep.
Because the reserves are completely outside of this. So it's nice to have the reserves as well, because then when you need to do something, you do have that extra pot of money.
Spoken like a mayor for town supervisor.
Yeah, Mary Beth, to Andy's point, if an auditor says we have too much in the fund balance, can we put a lot of money in an account like we're talking with the 370 is right now?
You can put some money into that. You can put money in, into your building reserve. You can put it in your highway reserve. There are specific reserve purposes, and probably Fred would know better than I even know, but there's law about what kind of reserves you can have.
Okay, but that's a possibility.
It is.
Or you could just ignore them.
Or you can
Maybe.
ignore them. I would just ignore them. I'm not saying ignore them, but I would say this is our plan going forward. And right now, given the current economy, I've sat through 2 presentations with investment companies in the last 2 days, and both of them have said that everybody's saying that we're gonna be in a recession in the next 2 years. So as much as we have a lot of fund balance, if we're gonna be in a recession in the next 2 years, that could have an impact on your fund balance. So
Should plan accordingly.
And certain reserves, once you put them in, that's the only purpose they could be used for.
exactly, right. And then I think just to kind of finish up, those last two slides are the reserves, just so that everybody knows what we have reserves for. So these are reserves in the A fund. Obviously, we've talked a lot about building repair, building capital and highway capital, but there are some smaller reserves there as well. So I just wanted people to know what we do have reserves for. And then the next slide is other reserve accounts, which are not traditional reserves. They're what's considered special revenue in capital projects. So we do have capital projects as well. I wanted you to just kind of see what the balances are in those projects. So those monies are earmarked as well. And then the last slide is the special revenue reserves. And that's where the economic development funds are. So we do have tons of money.
I think Lydia entered in.
Lydia, go ahead.
I should probably know this, but the $2 million we're talking about not spending this year, could you please refresh my memory as to what that is?
So that's when the budget was presented in 21, we established a tax levy, and in order to balance the total appropriations, we said we were going to take $2 million out of fund balance. Our experience has been that we don't usually end up taking that money out of fund balance because there's vacancies throughout the year, and sales tax, we are very conservative in budgeting. So many times we're over in the sales tax revenue, things like that. So we don't usually end up having to take that 2 million.
Balance the budget.
But if you didn't put it in there, you would have had to raise taxes.
Exactly.
So you said you'll use it so that
Right,
you
so
can
that
do
we
the
don't
zero
have to
tax.
raise taxes.
Jim?
I just want to get a copy of those 3 slides on the reserves.
Okay, I think Amanda had it and we've got the Perfect.
Go ahead.
If we put money in one of these reserve accounts, and can we take it back out of the account? Once you put it in there, it's there.
It's
Once
for
you-
that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know legally, Fred, if you can undo the purpose.
Well, with some reserves, depending on what it was set up for, you may be able to transfer it into another reserve. Now whether you can liquidate the reserve and put it back in your fund balance, that generally does not happen.
Yeah, I would be surprised, but maybe there's a loophole. I don't.
It's been a while, but yeah, maybe.
We would transfer money into these reserve accounts, I guess cautiously.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, last year, like transferring, you put $2 million in the building capital reserve. I think that was with good intent because we are thinking we need to do something with our building. And the building repair reserve, in all honesty, we had spent money out of that last year to do some, necessary repairs, and those things do come up. So.
Andy?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on that, because I agree with what Lynn said too, is, we're not that far over, so you can just ignore them, but because our town does, and they usually keep 50% of their budget, so. But then they started, getting a little nervous, so they did, like you were just asking, and putting them into different accounts, reserve accounts, and then realizing, well, gee, we can't take that back out now after we did that just to make it look better. So we need to be, it's one thing if we put $500,000 into the one that we want to take 370,000 out of.
Right, yeah.
Chances are we're going to find more things to spend that $500,000 in the future. But let's not just take $5 million and throw it in a reserve thinking that'll make them happy.
And I don't know that they'll be overly concerned. It's not that far over. They just may mention it to you. And if they mention it to me, I would just say to them, we're looking at a building and that kind of thing. So at this point.
Any further questions, anybody?
No, I just wonder where broadband will come out of.
Thank you, Maribel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Mr. Dempsey?
Yes. In addition to our daily work of tax collections that we've been working with and balancing with each of our towns here locally, we've been working on 2 main things here this last month. The first one is preparing for the upcoming foreclosure auction that's going to be online for the public from June 13th through the 27th. And we've been working closely with the planning department and specifically the real property services with Jenny to help us in this, to prepare for the auction. We didn't have the auction last year because of COVID, so we're anticipating a big one this year. The online auction was very successful last time, so we're hoping it's really good this time around. So the other thing that we been working on continuously, and I mentioned this last time, you probably don't remember, but we had a situation with our foreclosure lawyers came to us and asked for a significant increase this year. And fortunately, we've been able to work through a system to bring Fred on board. He's going to be our new foreclosure specialist here in the county, so we don't have to farm that out anymore. And this transition is going to take approximately 3 years. And Fred can tell you about it in detail if you want some answers, but basically McLeod, the firm in Syracuse, is going to help to educate Fred on the specifics and then roll over the course the duties for a year and a little less the second year, and hopefully the third year will be a full transition. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, long-term, we're going to save money. And most importantly, too, we're going to have our local legal team doing this with local people. We're not farming it out to outside people in Syracuse. So that's been, you can appreciate that's been a lot of conversation and a lot of legal back and forth and contracts and so on. And Chris and Fred have been working on that real hard. So that's what we've been doing in our department for this last month. Does anybody have any specific questions?
Any questions for Dave? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Diane first.
Good evening. You have my report. Just ask if anybody has any questions.
Anybody? Speak now or forever. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Turn the page. Okay, we're down to resolutions, I believe. Okay, Ways and Means number one. This is simply a matter of legally approving a settlement between assessor and the people suing. There's no cost to anybody. Any questions on it?
I'll move it.
Second, Mark.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is a little more complicated. We're setting up a public hearing for whatever the date is. And we'll be selling or public hearing is about selling a piece of land that in Onondaga County, that Cayuga County owns. I have a map if anybody wants to look at it. It's not much to look at. It's between the thruway and the railroad tracks. So it's not a very good piece of property. Okay. The people offered 16,000 for it. It's assessed for 13,000. Legal has approved this. So any questions on it?
I'll move WM3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's actually
It's two.
I thought WM3 is fixing the local notice of public hearing. Is what he just said, isn't it?
No.
No, it's talking about WM2.
We're talking about WM2.
Let's finish WM2. All those,
Sorry.
there was a second, right?
Yeah.
Who, I didn't have a
I
motion.
second that, Max.
Okay.
Okay.
Who made the motion on that
Chris
one?
did.
Yeah, WM2.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And we're selling a piece of property to a,
It's old IDA
There's a feed
line.
company, there's a feed company, railroad track, feed company, grain storage.
Yep.
They offer to buy it for the 13, it's 13 acres also, so the price is not great, but we have no use for it. Water and sewer's already signed off on it, so.
Hans, just for clarification, that property was purchased, I believe, a long time ago, Dave Farrell in the office. And the idea of that was to provide access to Onondaga County if we ever needed to tap into their water services. If you go back 20 years, that was an important, we should have asked Herb while he was here because he was in charge of a lot of that. That was an important option along with Lake Ontario to make sure that we always had access to the best water opportunity. And obviously, we've changed a lot since then, so this has become available to move along.
There's nothing there, Elaine, other than a feed mill,
okay,
a railroad track.
Yep.
I mean,
And the feed mill is on that property and he's looking to put some solar panels in there, I think is what he's looking to do with the property.
Okay, any further questions? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, W3, local law for public hearing on. Okay, this is removing the county administrator out of our docket, whatever you want to call it, okay? The title was established a couple times, different ways, and now we're closing the door on it. Actually, so any questions on that?
I'll move it.
Second, Mark.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Go ahead.
So I'm gonna vote against this, and I'm not, certainly never against a public hearing. I do feel the timing of this is premature. We have not decided on a form of government. We currently live and reside under an administrative form of government. It's lots of kinks to work out. I did it for 2 years by myself with no administrator. Sharon now is doing it with no administrator. Like I said, we haven't agreed on our next steps, so I feel like it's premature to make this motion right. I'm gonna vote no against that.
I agree, same reasons, really. What's the rush?
Jim, you had your hand up?
Well, yeah, I was gonna,
Or
I think.
was I just imagining that?
No, you weren't. You weren't. You still got a keen eye.
Can't hear them.
It's all right, you can't have everything.
So are we're ending one position and opening up another? Is that what I'm understanding? Or we're just?
We've already established another position, the operations officer. Okay. Just hired somebody, right? So we're switching from, the administrator had more power. The operations officer is a lower scale, lower down on the order of things. Okay, my understanding, right?
Yeah, can I speak,
What
Mr. Chair?
about,
Please do.
what about budget? Okay.
Yeah, the main reason that I was told the other day, and Fred could certainly emphasize this a little bit more, but it's just the wording and all the paperwork that we have in the county that said county administrator. That paperwork is being changed around, right? To take that word out of there, those words out of there.
It was my understanding that the purchasing function is being looked at in the county, and I'm getting into this piece late. And the purchasing function under this local law reports directly to the county administrator, not the chairman. Okay,
Purchasing functions.
yes, it's in the local law. The purchasing function reports to the administrator. It was my understanding that this was being repealed so that another avenue can be used with the purchasing function. Should it be appointed by the chair, by the legislature? That was my understanding.
Well, this is
not.
Go ahead.
This is abolishing administrative form of government.
Well,
This is
it's not an I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
It's not an administrative form of government. It is a local law. It's a local law that appoints a administrator.
Right,
So
right.
the county never went so far as to have an administrative form of government.
True. So it's appointing an administrator, right?
That's correct. It's abolishing the,
We've had some bad luck, but we haven't decided on what we're gonna do. So I don't wanna
I understand.
eliminate our options. I just feel like it's premature. Am I at the end of the day against this? You know I am. I'm for doing this, but I just think the timing is too soon.
Go ahead.
No, Andy had his hand up first.
Okay. All right, so here's my question for our legal minds. So we do this. To Aileen's point, it doesn't mean we've completely done away with ever being able to have an administrator again. We're just doing this to clean up who Don basically goes to.
well, you've asked a couple questions.
Yeah.
You've asked a couple questions there. I mean, if the local law is repealed, you can always reestablish position.
Find future legislatures.
Manager. That can always be done.
Do any.
And with that local law, subject to with a local law, yeah.
But if we wanted to decide if Don Carr stands alone or reports to someone else, we can do that. This is abolishing the administrator, the local law that was passed to have an administrator. That was sort of the form of government we had. We don't have a replacement yet. If we need to do something to further establish the reporting structure for Don Carr, why does it have to be this format of abolishing the administrator until we have a replacement?
Well, if, what it would take would be a local law to amend this local law.
That's not what we're talking about.
That's correct. That's not.
We
what
are
this
talking
is
about abolishing it.
That's correct.
We can deal with Don Carr in a different way if we chose to,
Right. And that would take amending this local law and then.
having him report to Dave, who's supposedly the administrator at this point. I mean,
Understood.
this is not the same as fixing Don Carr's reporting structure in my mind.
Jim?
The way it's worded, you mean?
Right.
Go ahead, Jim.
So is it just the wording that that you have an issue with? Is it something that we could have tabled and readdressed, or is it? Just ask.
You got a question back here.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If I could, I think that the opposition is duly noted and understood. But I would remind everyone that I think 5 out of 7 were failures, and I'm comfortable with this. So if there's no further, I guess I'd call the question.
I had my hand up too.
Sorry.
The only thing I want to say is it doesn't, I mean, whichever way we go, a local law can take us back the other way. So if this is the quickest way to fix whatever our problem might be with where Don reports to or whatever, a local law will change it. If we leave this and then we switch government, we still have to do this at another time. So, I mean, am I right or am I wrong? If we did this and then we decided, oh, let's hire an administrator in 8 months from now or a year from now, we could still do a local law to change things to hire an administrator, right?
Right. Or you could do a local law. You could do a local law to amend this local law, take out the reporting structure for the purchasing
director. Yes.
Those are kind of the options as I see them.
David?
I know Chris called the question, but just, if I remember right, we had a meeting a few weeks ago. And the whole reason was the auditor checked something and we had to change the system who Don Carr reports to. Does anybody remember that, Diane, do you, or Chris? I thought that was the whole emphasis of this is Don Carr has to report to somebody. We don't have a county administrator. So he has to report to somebody. To do that, we have to take this title out.
There was something to do with the auditor, and I can't quite recall exactly what it is. But I also remember there were numerous other structural implications that were contained in the original local law that's under discussion, that those structures are no longer being used. I think that we've sort of substituted the chair. And the only place that is codified is in your rules of order, which don't technically succeed a local law. They kind of fall in the lower range of precedence. So your rules of order say that, you know, the chair is the acting administrator. But, you know, I think that's questionable, quite honest. So all of the structural implications you have in that local law, I don't know that any of them are being followed. And that was the goal, was to sort of expand it from the auditor, to try to clean up what we still have in numerous policies and various other places throughout the county.
Last call. Last call.
Sorry, I understand. Thank you. So to your point, though, who is managing the county right now?
At the moment, it's the chair.
Right. So we need to be explicit about what our expectation is the chair. Are they acting administrator or acting manager of the county, or are they just the chief elected to oversee policy?
In my view,
As those are two hugely separate things. It takes an awful lot to run the county, to put it on one person to be the chief elected. That needs to be laid out completely. I guess my point is we haven't built in a structure yet to make managing the county successful. It takes a team of people that are not in this room. So beginning now with the operations officer, you've gotten a little bit of help to be your project manager. Certainly that will take some load off. However, you're the chief elected, you're still in charge. They're going to help, but there's still so much more that needs to be done. And then it's about talking about how much, how strong do you want that curtain to be between policy and operations? I just feel like there's a lot to discuss and we need to think about this further. And I think the Don Carr, like, excuse of doing this now doesn't wash with me. I think that we're in a real big hurry to do away with this administrator. I don't necessarily disagree with that. We've had a lot of failed attempts at this, but I'm just not ready personally to let it go. So I will vote no, but.
I'm gonna have a last call. No, I'm gonna.
You go for it.
We do have Mr. Gould as, basically taking the place of the administrator. We are gonna, in short order, have the operations manager, and it's time to quit. And I'm gonna bring this to vote right now. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Did we move it?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Duly noted, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Human resource position for WM4. This is not a new position. It's replacing a senior typist, moving her up to the bracket where she ought to be, is my understanding of it.
Can we bundle 4 and 5? They're
It's
both
fine.
human resources.
Yes, yes.
I make a motion to bundle 4 and 5.
Second.
Okay, any problem with that? If not, we'll go ahead to discussion. Any comments, anybody? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Let's move the motion then, okay? The actual motion. Yeah, okay, never mind, I'm there. All those in favor of the WM4 and 5?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Nobody opposed, so carried. Thank you. Elaine, I believe you're up next.
Yep. Health and Human Services had 10, yes, 10 resolutions. They went through committee. I can I'll offer them up as a bundle, or I can take them out separately. I did answer a couple questions for Mr. Petrus. He asked about the creation of the new positions in HH2, which would be 100% funded through the creating a public health educator position using 5 years of grant funding. The resolution specifically says if the grant goes, the position goes. The HH3 was amended at the committee. We took out the language to remove the fill behind language because the case was made that WIC will only allow a competent professional to be hired. The title that was vacated was obsolete. So there's no reason to have fill behind language in that resolution, and that's 100% funded by WIC. And then the HH6 was the creation of a new billing specialist for mental health. And in order to do that, they are unfunding the compliance officer that was in the mental health budget. So there will be no additional funds needed in the mental health budget to accomplish those. And I can answer any other questions.
Well, we got to move things first for
Yes.
discuss. So I want to,
Okay,
HH6, I have more questions. So
All right.
I'll move 1 through 5 and 7 through 10 as a bundle.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
No, my discussion's on the one that
Oh, okay.
didn't bundle.
we're just all in favor of those?
The others, the ones that were bundled, okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
So I'll move HH6 for discussion.
Second.
I just got a quick question.
Sure thing.
Who did this before? I mean, explain how that works, the defunding.
My
this.
understanding is the compliance officer position that was there has been, that position is now promoted to the deputy director of mental health. So that deputy director of mental health will have the compliance officer responsibilities as part of their responsibility. That's why they don't feel they have to fill that compliance officer position. We talked at the committee, they had language in there about unfunding it in order to create this billing specialist. We did talk about the potential of abolishing the compliance officer then, if you have no intention of filling it at this time. But we talked about the administrative work that would be if we brought it back to the commission and had to regrade it. But at this point, the current deputy director that has been promoted was the compliance officer and will continue to assume those duties as the deputy director.
So basically, it's the same person doing the same job, is that?
The new position will be a second billing and coding specialist, which they felt they needed to be able to monitor the volume of work they have in the mental health center. And they'll give up the funding in that one position to accomplish the new hire.
Okay, so that explains it more. So this is more important. at the
Yes,
present
in terms of priority, without asking for additional money in their budget, they wanted that second coding and billing specialist more than filling the compliance officer.
Okay.
Jim? I think my question might have got answered at the end.
Okay.
That they're adjusting the budget to accommodate this.
They're unfunding one current position that was in the budget, and they're moving that funding to a newly created position, so it's budget neutral.
And is that position that they're the compliance officer thing, they're eliminating that position then, or just moving?
They're unfunding it but we did talk about the resolution could require them to abolish it. But, if you abolish it and the deputy director, if they ever want to fill it again, they have to go back administratively through civil service, recreate it, reclassify it. But
So the compliance officer position is not required by the health department. We're not going to get in a pickle
it's
where.
not required by mental health. They certainly need to do compliance activities, and the deputy will fulfill those responsibilities. And I can ask Liz, is there a mandate for
There
that
is not a
title?
mandate for a compliance officer position. There is, however, a mandate to have a compliance program and somebody who has designated authority to oversee that program, and that would be the deputy director.
So if that can be put into this resolution, then I would be all for it. I understand the zero budget change and stuff, but I just want to make sure we're not going to create another position 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road. Now we have to fill that those duties are being covered by.
Still has to come back to us.
I'm gonna say it has come through us.
Pardon me?
But save ourselves some headache. We can take care of it now.
We can add a whereas clause and have that for the meeting, an amendment to
And I would support that.
whereas that the oversight of the compliance program will be fulfilled by the current deputy. That's what you're looking for.
Yes.
Okay. Could we do that, Fred? Okay, and then we'll have that for the resolution. So we won't abolish the position, but we'll make it clear
Right, that
we
would-
still have the compliance oversight being fulfilled by the deputy director.
Good.
Oh, no, not really, but he's got to write it. Okay, thank you.
You're amending H&H6?
He's asking for the amendment to HH6 to include language that the compliance program will be completed and have oversight by the current deputy director. Right?
Yes.
Yes, and we'll bring that amended resolution to the ledge meeting.
Assuming the amendment passes and the resolution
Yes,
passes.
if that amendment does pass.
Do we have to do anything with it tonight?
Just first and second on the amendment, first and second on the resolution. I'll make the adjustments and it'll be ready next week.
So Jim, you made the amendment and I'll second it.
Okay, yes.
Any further questions or discussion?
Right.
The amendment.
Go ahead.
No, just we're voting. I get my question is, I guess we're voting on the amendment,
I have
correct?
to vote on the amendment first.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, now-
One last thing, Hans, if I could, I'll just talk to about the issue that you talked with Brenda Wyman about.
Let's finish this.
Oh, okay.
You gotta vote
This
on
is the amendment, so we
All
got
right.
to do the motion.
Okay.
The resolution.
it. We need to make a motion on the
I've
resolution.
got a motion and a second. I've got Andy and then Chris seconded
That's on the amendment.
That's on the amendment.
So it's up.
on the resolution.
All those in favor of W6 as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried.
Pick whoever you want, Max.
Yeah, right.
I've got it here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then most of us have heard Brenda Wyman talk about her hope to get her full staff moved over to the Boyle Center. She was hoping that she would get the proposal from Christopher Community before the HHS meeting. She didn't. She asked if it was possible, and I think she discussed that with you too, Hans, if it would be possible to discuss this here tonight. She did finally get the proposal from Christopher Community that oversee Boyle Center. They are willing to give the 12,000 a 12,000 per year contract for 1,200 additional square feet at the Boyle Center. Turns out to be $10 per square foot. If she's asking if there would be approval by Ways and Means to have that also added on to the legislative meeting next week. That would be the annual, it would be an annual lease of $12,000 per year. She feels that she has the Office for the Aging funding to be able to cover that at least until 2024. This is the short-term plan until the OFA is part of the larger building plan. And this will, this is a very reasonable rent that's not been moved for years. And if we can move this forward next week, she'll be able to start getting ready to get some staff out of the basement and over into the Boyle Center with all her staff together.
You would want to move it tonight?
Yes, and I'll
Okay.
correct that as well.
Motion to that effect, please.
Move it.
Second,
Second,
any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, none opposed, so carried. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next is government operations. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Government Operations had 8 resolutions. They all went through committee. I believe all these anyway were unanimously supported. So unless anyone would like them separated, I will offer one GO 1 through 8 as a bundle.
Move the bundle.
Second it.
Okay, any discussion on any of the motions? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, or any opposed? Unopposed, carried again. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Public Works, Mr.
No,
Dennison?
we got planning.
No, planning.
Planning.
Planning, okay, planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
Planning has
I'll get
more
there.
resolutions. They were all passed at committee, and I offer them as a bundle unless someone sees fit to separate them.
Move them.
I'll second. Daley?
Discussion on the bundle.
I just have a quick question. Number 4, the engineering service. I mean, is that one that's used? They continually use?
I believe EDR is, Chris is gone. I believe that there are, I know it's a common group that I've seen used through the county, but I can't speak to specifics.
I was just curious because we use different ones for different things, and I didn't know if this was one that specialized or.
Yeah, it's a
They are-
general design of it. You know, this.
well, I know EDR, the firm, through both my private work and public work that we're doing up in the village. And they're somewhat specialized, and I think Brian spoke to that at the Public Works meeting. And that's why they want to continue to use it for some specific projects.
Any further discussion on planning for resolutions? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unopposed, carried. Thank you. Now we're down to Andy and Public Works, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public Works had 9 resolutions that went through committee. Number 6 is a 2/3 vote, but that's at the full body, so I don't think we need to separate it here. So unless somebody wants one separated, I'd offer them.
I know this. Okay.
Yeah, I think the numbers are wrong on that. Andy, I think we got 2 PW6s.
Oh, yeah, I just don't.
So the last one on that page would be PW7.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yes, the bottom one is PW. So PW is 7, yes, needs 2/3, but that's at the full body, not here. So unless somebody wants that or other separated.
Right.
Yeah, I said 1 through 9.
Okay. So any questions?
I don't know.
Andy, I did listen to it on, I think I listened from remote. The only question on the 2/3 was where the money was coming from for the additional project, right?
Yeah.
Right now it's coming from fund balance,
Which that's what I guess.
right?
Which should come from.
Right, and that's kind of the recommendation. That's how the resolution's written. Yeah,
That's
all right.
the one for anybody who wasn't at Public Works. The bridge to nowhere if we don't put it in, because we've already put 2 out of the 3. So, of course, it's been 2 years, so everything has gone up considerably more than what the grant money we collected was. So what was the total we needed? Extra 20,000.
25,000.
Yeah. So if we don't come up to 25,000, we have a trail to nowheres without a bridge.
Right, okay.
Yes.
I have a question. We talked about this in caucus yesterday. The way the resolution reads, it's coming out of contingency.
Yes.
So
Every change.
I think Jim was going to
Yep.
amendment.
Oh, that's right. My
Thanks for reminding
mistake.
us.
It was contingency and I asked if we had enough and you said yes.
Jim, remember?
And I asked if it could come out of the ARPA
Off
fund.
of the amendment.
All right, so let's do this. I will offer 1 through 6 and 8, 9 as a bundle. Leave 7 out if somebody is looking to do something with it.
I'll move the bundle.
I'll second the bundle, Mark.
Any further questions on? or any
Mr. Chair, I just have one question. It appears there must be a mistake on PW 6. It says Cato Brutus.
That should be 7, by the way.
Well, either way, but it should be Brutus Cato Trail, right?
Oh, shut up.
Oh, I was wondering where we.
Hey.
With a story.
Add these things up to things. Did you?
Came out.
Do anything to get in the paper.
Down to business, the bundle, second or?
And
I
second.
got that.
Okay, thank you, man. So any further discussion on the bundle? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
All right, so PW 7, that is well, we just discussed it, that is putting the 3rd, final, and biggest bridge, so it's the biggest piece of water for everybody to swim over if we don't complete it, to connect the trail from Weedsport, basically Ditmar Road, right across from the marina entrance, all the way to, for those of you who maybe frequent it now and then, when it used to be there, TC's Bar in Cato, right as you're going down into Cato. So, and obviously, like I said, we need $25,000 because when we did the grant 2 years ago, all hell broke loose and everything cost so much more. So now what everybody wants to do with the money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for
Well, we need an amendment now.
providing the
You gonna
additional
move the
funds.
amendment?
I think we gotta move it first, don't we?
We have a motion on the,
Yeah, we gotta move the,
Yes, okay.
so I'll move what will now be
7.
PW 7.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, now we're on to discussion.
Yeah, some discussion just about where the funding, we were told it was coming out of contingency and I just asked, why couldn't we take it out of the ARPA funds and save the contingency for something?
Well, I think it reads the ARPA.
Really neat.
Does
No,
not
it reads contingency.
contingency. Okay, well, that's correct then, as far as I'm concerned.
It reads contingency, but I'm saying it, the contingency
No.
may be needed for something else later. So I wanted to amend that we can take it out of the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Why not? You know,
So
and
I mixed up.
if it's one of the criterias of parks, it's a trail.
Yep.
It's just $25,000.
So now the amendment is to take it out of the ARPA funds. instead of
Versus
the
fund balance.
contingency, Right?
Versus fund
It
balance.
wasn't fund balance. It
No,
was
but
contingency.
versus, why do you
Well, we could,
Right.
do
I
either?
want to save the fund balance as much as we
Okay,
can.
okay.
So I just got mixed up in my head, so. So you're offering an amendment?
I'd like to make a amendment that we take it out of the ARPA funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mark.
Okay, now discussion on the amendment. Any questions or comments? If not, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The amendment is carried. Now back to the resolution itself, W7. Any further discussion on that? Not on, all those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody, so carried again.
I have one more question about this now that we've amended it. So I guess this would be the legal question. Does it need a 2/3 vote now? Come the ledge meeting for being, now that it's been switched?
No.
It's not out of contingency. Okay, so that needs to be changed for the ledge meeting then. We don't have to separate.
No suffering there.
Yeah, we have to go through this again.
That's right.
See what I saved us?
A lot of suffering.
Okay, going on to judicial and public safety. Mr. Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. JPS has 8 resolutions. All were passed in committee. I would like to offer them as a bundle unless someone would like one singled out.
Second.
Okay, the bundle is up for discussion. Any questions on anything? Nobody? All those in favor of the bundle?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody opposed? Thank you again. We have one more legislature, authorizing the chair of the legislature to fill the secretary to the chief position. For some reason, Max is leaving us, so. Motion to.
Are you going,
That caught me by surprise.
are you going to better, bigger and better? or-
I am. I hope so at least, but yeah, no, that caught me off guard. I wasn't ready. I was happy to see that.
I'm sad to move this, but I'll move this.
Okay, second.
Seconded. Okay, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye. Just out of
Those
curiosity.
opposed? Nobody's opposed here.
When's this happening? I mean,
At the end of the month, so a week from tomorrow,
oh,
be my last day here at the company.
Next thing on the agenda is adjournment. Anybody want to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, good.
Jeez, if we'd known, we could have got a cupcake for him or something.
Still got the ledge meeting.
Oh, that's right.
I'll show some face too.
Oh, 1 week. Okay.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow.
Andy, are you baking?
No.